So we've got yellow seeds and green seeds. We're told that yellow is dominant to green. And these are both heterozygous. So if I cross these guys, big Y, little y, with big Y, little y, and what I will get is I will have big Y, big Y, big Y, little y, big Y, little y, and little y, little y. Now, there's two ways to talk about what's going on in here. One way is to talk about what these things actually look like. Because this goes back to the homework I gave you guys on straight recessitivity or dominance, like there's nothing incomplete, there's nothing co, it's just either it's dominant or it's not. You can see here that this guy's got two dominants, this guy's got a dominant, this guy's got a dominant. So what that means is everything in these three is going to have the dominant trait expressed, even though these two are heterozygous and this one is homozygous. So what that means is all three of these, of the four, are going to be yellow. And this little guy here is the only one that's going to be green. So when I look at this thing, I could say, okay, well, 3 of the 4 are going to be yellow, 1/4 are going to be green. And so this then is a set of ratios, but it's a set of ratios that govern appearance. So when we talk about the appearance of things, we're talking about their phenotypes. So this would be phenotypic ratio. It's the various ratios of what things actually look like. So 3/4 is going to be 75% are going to be yellow. 1/4 is 25% are going to be green. But we could say, okay, well, what if I don't want to look at the phenotypes? What if I want to look at the actual alleles that are expressed? You can see here that I've got 2 that are going to be heterozygous of the 4 possibilities. 1 of the 4 is going to be homozygous dominant. 1 of the 4 is going to be homozygous recessive. And so when we don't care about the phenotypes, we're just looking at the actual gene combinations. That's genotypic ratio. So you're going to have 25% that are big Y, 50% that are heterozygous, and 25% that are recessive. Now on the quiz, I'm not going to ask you to go back and forth between percentages and fractions. I mean, it shouldn't be difficult. By grade 10, that should not be a hard thing for you to do. But I'm not going to ask you for it. I'll ask you for what fraction, and if you want to give me that result as a... Because I will ask you questions like this. This is going to ask. You can give it to me as a fraction or as a percentage or as a decimal. I don't care. Just be clear with what you're giving me. Does that answer your question? Probably in way more detail than you wanted. Does anyone else have any questions about anything that we've done between heredity and the monsters that you'd like me to go over? Has anyone finished the 1.2 assessment and would like to see the answers to those? Okay. Nobody? Nobody wants the answers to the 1.2 assessment? Okay, cool. Which means that when I said Wednesday or Thursday, you guys were desperately hoping it would be Thursday because none of you prepared for today, is what I'm hearing. Because nobody wants the answers to the 1.2 assessment. Okay. Any other comments, questions, concerns? It's really quiet because most of half the Brooklyns are gone. The Brooklyns that ask all the questions are gone, which is not necessarily a good thing when you have a quiz coming tomorrow. Okay. At noon, I will need to pause briefly because I need to register for something that only happens at noon. Thank you for handing that in. But before then, let's get started. If no one has any questions on anything genetics-y, we're going to start talking about mutations today. So, Flip, find me this page. Natural selection, artificial selection, and mutations. So we've kind of talked about a few of these already. I've brought them up periodically as we've discussed different things. Mutations are a permanent change. If I could spell it, that'd be great. Permanent change. Once they're there, unless another mutation does something to knock them out or knock them around or whatever. But once they're in, they're in. And they are a permanent change in the genetic material of an organism. There's different ways these mutations can occur. Either they can be a swapping of nucleotides, of nitrogenous bases. They could be additions of nitrogenous bases, or they can be deletions. I guess that's the three ways you can change a genetic code. Change what's there, add something new, take out something that should be. And there's names for all of these things, and I'm not going to get into specific examples of all of these, but they are all, those are the ways that these things could happen. Mutations are, some are positive, some are negative. Mutations are at the very most fundamental level, are a source of genetic variation. And these things just happen. We talked about, back when we talked about DNA replication, we said that your DNA replication is good till about, like, they'll make about one mistake every billion or so nitrogenous base pairs. And so that's pretty good. But if you have fast growing organisms, insects, rodents, for example, things that reproduce very, very quickly, you can start to have enough organisms produced so that these mutations or these changes add up over time. And we say, okay, well, there might only be a few mistakes in one organism for a human that lives 80 years and maybe only has 2, 3, 4, 5 children. Really crazy. More than, or none, right? You're not going to see it as quickly in people, but for insects, for rodents, you see it very, very quickly. Some are positive, some are negative. They can occur during DNA replication or from external factors like, well, there's a few things. It can just be a mistake in DNA replication, or you can increase the chance of a mutation occurring. What kinds of external factors do we or do you already know of that can cause these mutations to happen? The big example everyone points to is like superheroes, right? I mean, those are just extreme examples of the stuff that we're talking about. Bruce Banner wasn't always the Hulk. How did he become the Hulk? How did he mutate? Do you have any comic bookies in here? Kale. How did the Hulk become the Hulk?
What?
How did the Hulk become the Hulk?
You mean like fall into like a chamber?
No, he didn't. It was not gas. Go to class. How did the Hulk become a Hulk? Nobody? Say him? Come on. Okay. How did Captain America become Captain America? A special serum. We don't know what the serum is, but effectively we can just call it chemical exposure, right? Like, that's one way to do this. Certain chemicals, that's this blank over here. Not every set of chemicals is designed to turn you into a super soldier. None of the chemicals I've ever been exposed to have ever made me turn into a super soldier, unfortunately. That'd be pretty cool. No work and all of a sudden you become crazily muscly. That'd be fun. Painful apparently, but fun. What else? Nobody knows how the Hulk became the Hulk. The Hulk became the Hulk due to exposure to gamma rays, lots of them, during nuclear testing. It's also how Godzilla became Godzilla. It's how King Kong apparently became King Kong. Like, all of these monster mutations that we talk about, lots of them are due to exposure to radiation. Now, when we think about exposure to radiation, we think about things like, oh, this nuclear power plant got damaged in Japan due to an earthquake or a tsunami. And we don't think about mutations really occurring there except for what? What's the big mutation everyone's concerned about? When a nuclear plant melts down, or you're exposed to that kind of radiation. Like what? Okay, maybe I won't say mutations. Let's just go to all the concerns that people could have. What is the big concern that people have when exposed to nuclear radiation? Someone say it louder. Oh, they said Sarah. I thought they answered my question. Maybe Sarah knows. Sarah, what's the big concern that everyone has when... Are you looking for me? Come on in. Come on in. Is that where I have to get my water balloons thrown at me again? I did it last time when they didn't ever hit me. I threw them back.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
You should go again.
When is it?
May 30th at lunch.
Okay, I'll do it.
Thank you.
Do I get face protection?
Maybe. We'll take it into consideration.
Maybe. Okay. Yes, I will do it.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone talk amongst yourself briefly. It's noon. I now must register for my thing. I will ask the question again. Give me just don't even worry about it. Bring it back to this. So my question, Sarah, was, we're talking about mutations. We're talking about how mutations can occur during genetic or DNA replication just on their own, but they can also be caused by external factors like blank from blank and exposure to certain chemicals. And I was asking, okay, so what kind of exposures are we talking about here? So nobody knew that the Hulk was created due to gamma radiation. Gamma radiation is a form of nuclear radiation, often caused by nuclear blasts. But we also talk about things like nuclear radiation, and maybe you guys are too young to remember these things, but there was an earthquake and a tsunami in Japan, maybe a decade ago, damaged the nuclear power plant, and everyone was concerned about the effects of radiation in the surrounding area, and what happened if the radiation got out into the sea. What do we care about? What is the issue with radiation? Like, why do we care about this? I mean, yeah, that's the heat. That's not necessarily the radiation. Yeah, you're adding nuclear blast, and then the heat from it will fry you. That's a very real thing.
Isn't it that people use like radiation to get rid of cancer and stuff?
Nielsen? Okay, so you can have some of those like crazy visual deformities, but Sarah's kind of going it the other way. Well, isn't radiation used to kill cancer? Yeah, radiation is used to kill cancer, but radiation also causes it. Radiation's a huge, there's concerns around cancer rates going up. Oh man, you guys, there's all sorts of fun world events that you guys just haven't been exposed to. Chernobyl was a nuclear disaster that happened in Ukraine. That's part of one of the issues that they're concerned about with the war that's going on in Ukraine right now, with the number of nuclear power plants that are out there. If the Russians damage them, and all of a sudden these things are allowed to have their reactive material leach out into the surrounding areas, they're concerned about cancer rates in Ukraine and Eastern Europe just going through the roof. None of you guys, I was barely alive, but Desert Storm was a thing. Hands up if you know what Desert Storm was. None of you. Okay, cool. Desert Storm was the first time that the United States invaded Iraq. It's happened twice. It was the first time it happened in the early 90s, 91, 92, 91? It was 1991. And the United States military rolls into Iraq for a host of reasons. And one of the munitions, one of the weapons that the United States Army possesses is a particular kind of bullet that is designed to be an armor-piercing round. The armor-piercing rounds use what's called depleted uranium. Does uranium, that word uranium, mean anything to any of you? Uranium is nobody? It's an element. It's an element that with radioactive properties. They used it in reactors, they used it in bombs, and then once it gets depleted, it's no longer useful as a power source. They turned it into bullets. Very, very hard. Easily punched through armor, but also, just because uranium has been depleted doesn't mean it's not radioactive still. And so they dumped tons of this material all over the desert in Iraq. And so cancer rates in Iraq have gone up. Japanese nuclear reactors have been damaged due to earthquakes. Cancer rates in those areas go up. It's why people don't want nuclear power, even though nuclear power is actually really safe. If it gets damaged, on the rare occurrence that something goes wrong, it goes wrong in a really spectacular way. So radiation, I'm going to walk over here. All forms of radiation, actually that's not true. The gamma ray portion of radiation, and most other parts of radiation, not all, most, can be found on this poster here. This is my poster of the radiation spectrum. It also has the words electromagnetic in front of it, electromagnetic radiation. We've discovered lots about what radiation is, and we'll look at it when we look at physics and energy transfer in our next unit. But on its most fundamental level, gamma radiation is up here. Gamma radiation is just super high energy light. Light, but you give it tons of energy, and now all of a sudden light just doesn't bounce off you, it's able to punch through you. And when light is able to punch through you, it can now start to get into the cells and the parts of the cell that make you evil. It's now capable of damaging your DNA. You guys are, I'm hoping not many of you have had to experience this, but probably a bunch of you have. High enough energy light that it punches through your skin but not your bones. We call these things. Someone say it. If I need to see a picture of your bones, what do I use? An X-ray. An X-ray, so this gamma rays are up here, really high energy. X-rays are just below gamma rays as far as the amount of energy they possess. They possess more energy than this light does. I can't see light bouncing off you right now and showing me your bones. I just see your skin and clothes, which is probably fine. I don't need to see your bones because I'm not a doctor. But if I needed to see, if I was a doctor, and you come in and say, oh, my arm's bent backwards. Okay, cool. Let's take a picture so I can see inside you without cutting you open. We'll just use light that has a slightly higher band of energy. If you decrease that energy a little bit further, you get the visible spectrum. This light. This is the same light that we use for X-rays. It's the same light that causes gamma rays. We just dialed down the energy that was available to that light. There is a band in between visible light, right here, this really narrow band of light. It's just past the visible spectrum, and the sun emits it all the time. Does anyone know what's just past? You guys have mentioned it a couple times, actually. Just past the visible spectrum that light emits. Or sorry, that the sun emits. Say it louder. UV. You betcha. UV. So UV is just yet another kind of electromagnetic radiation. We just dialed down the energy. We go gamma, then we go X-rays, then we go soft X-rays, then we go UV, then we go visible light. At the really, really high end, gamma radiation, great for causing cancer. You want to cause cancer? Gamma radiation will do that for you very effectively. X-rays will do it, but not as effectively. X-rays can cause cancer, but you need to be exposed to a whole lot more of them, which is why giving you an X-ray once isn't such a big deal. But the person who's giving you the X-ray, hands up if you ever had an X-ray? Anyone who's ever been to the dentist regularly should have had an X-ray? You get the lead vest because they only want to expose the very specific part of your body that needs the picture to this radiation. What does the person taking the picture do? Sorry?
Run away.
Yeah, they leave the room. Like, has that never concerned any of you? Yeah. I'm going to take a picture of you from way the frig over there because I don't want to be exposed to what you're going to be exposed to while I take your picture. One X-ray every so often isn't going to hurt you. But if you're constantly taking X-rays, if you're a dental hygienist taking X-rays all day and you're in the room with that equipment, now all of a sudden your exposure goes up, your cancer risk goes up. We dial that back down even further and we get to before visible, we get to UV. Now UV is just the same thing, just slightly less energy. So you need even more of it than you would X-rays to cause cancer. But the beauty of UV is that UV also does what? Ladies, what do you use UV for? And I'm tanning. We go out of our way, and the only reason I call on the ladies, I'm sure guys tan too, but it's been mentioned more than I'm used to in a science class when all we talked about is chemistry and genetics, comparing tans. You guys were doing this a couple weeks ago, showing each other pictures of how dark you've gotten. Yeah, see, we're doing it right now. We're glorifying the exposure to cancer-causing radiation. Because the more time you spend under UV light, you increase your chance of getting what? What kind of cancer specifically? Cancer of your skin cancer. So this is what's going on here. An example of an external factor that can cause a mutation is radiation from the sun. It's just high energy light. But you've also got radiation from, I'll go over here, you've also got radiation from things like X-rays. And exposure to certain chemicals. Now, I haven't said it yet, it's going to be down here when we do it. Cancer is just a mutation. It is a mutation that causes the rapid uncontrolled growth of cells. We call that rapid uncontrolled growth a tumor. And often, if that tumor goes unchecked, then those continue to multiply and trigger that same kind of mutation in other kinds of cells. It's why cancers can spread. Now that we've identified cancer as a mutation, what kinds of chemicals are you aware of that cause cancer? There's tons. What kinds of chemicals cause cancers? What are the kinds of things that have warning causes cancer labels on them? Sorry? No, bleach has its own issues. Bleach is corrosive. That none of you know might actually be good. Cigarette cartons come with warning labels for all and pictures of all of the cancers that smoking cigarettes can cause. So when we talk about exposure to certain chemicals, basically everything in cigarettes is one. Lead. Lead is another one. Lead can cause cancer. Hands up, have you ever heard of asbestos? Oh, not enough of you. Asbestos is a fantastic compound used as a flame retardant. So people are like, this stuff doesn't burn. Let's put it in buildings everywhere to use it as a way to help fires not spread through buildings. But now people start to renovate their buildings and they're like, oh yes, the asbestos that you put here, I'm now disturbing. And it's when asbestos dust gets into the air and then you breathe it in and gets down into your lungs, cause lung cancer. Another thing called silicate. Silicate is one of the primary ingredients in concrete. Cause lung cancer. We now know. And again, when sitting on a concrete road, this is not the issue. Because last time anyone breathed in and got silicate from the road in their lungs, it never happens because you'd be like deteriorating the road when you breathe. But someone had to make the road at some point. Concrete had to be mixed at some point. Someone was involved in tearing open the bag or unloading the excavator scoop of silicate into the cement truck. It's that dust, so many chemicals that can, used improperly, cause cancer. That's why WCB is a thing. Anything that can cause a mutation in DNA is called a mutagen, and all of these things are mutagens. Chemicals that can cause cancer, radiation from the sun, X-rays, all of these things can cause mutations to happen. And generally speaking, anything that isn't like DNA making an oops on its own, generally those are all bad. Anything else is terrible. Because the mutation that they cause is primarily cancer. Or as Brooklyn mentioned, you get animals living in like the area surrounding Chernobyl, which people are not allowed to live in. It's called the exclusion zone. They've made movies and TV shows about this. There's a whole HBO series about Chernobyl. And animals don't really listen. If you told a dog, don't go in there, the dog doesn't care. The wolves live in the area, the birds, the rabbits, live in the area. And so we can see the results of these kinds of mutations. Puppies, wolf pups being born with extra legs, missing legs, extra eyes, missing eyes, these kinds of issues. But not all mutations are bad. We'll talk about that too. Some mutations can be harmful. Most mutations, I would argue, are harmful and can cause a cell to die. That's actually the best case scenario. Cell death is the best case scenario because if the cell is dead, it's not going to replicate. Cell death, best case scenario for some of these mutations. Worse, they could malfunction. Even worse, they could multiply uncontrollably. Cell death is the best case scenario for some of these mutations. So the multiply uncontrollably, this is cancer. That is cancer in a nutshell. All cancers in a nutshell. Different kinds of cancers do this different ways. They affect different parts of your body. Lymphoma is cancers of the lymph system. Lung is lung cancer. Breast cancer is tissue in the cancer of the breast tissue. Skin cancer is, this. I don't have skin cancer, but any one of these things, any one of my moles could theoretically develop into skin cancer. And if you look at my arms are fascinating because one of my arms, actually I can't roll this up very far, looks like this. I have all sorts of marks all over. This arm is totally clean. Well, I got some freckles, but relatively speaking, I have way less marks on this arm than this arm. Why does this arm have more than this arm? Think about where we live. Think about the fact that I've had a driver's license for longer than you have. Why is my left arm? Because we sit on the left-hand side of the car when we drive. I roll my window down, the arms hang out. I'm pretty white, you guys can see. I'm a fairly pale individual. I'm of Russian and German descent. We are a pale people. The sun affects me really, really quickly. The freckles, I get these sunspots, I get moles. My left arm is way more than my right just because of my exposure to the sun while I'm driving around in the summer. It's that simple for me. That's one example. Another example, the malfunction. The malfunction is an interesting one, and I want to make sure I get this right. I Googled something that I want to give to you. Okay, so an example, which I've mentioned before of a malfunction, is this. If we're talking about malfunctions in cells, there is a gene called the HTT gene on chromosome number 4. Chromosome 4. And one of the traits of this particular gene is that it has a sequence of nucleotides that repeats in its code. And the section that repeats goes CAG, 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 I'll just put ... This is the code that repeats. If, where's the number? A normal HTT gene that functions the way it's supposed to function has between 10 to 35 repetitions. Or I'll say repeats because I don't have enough space there. If during cell DNA replication, if somehow this CAG pattern is able to hit a 36th or higher repetition, congratulations, you now have Huntington's disease. That's all it takes. Huntington's is 10 to 35 is good. We want this. Huntington's results from 36 plus repetitions, which, again, none of us have any way of knowing how many repetitions are in your particular genome for the Huntington's for this HTT gene. You could have 10. If you only have 10 repetitions, it's not likely at all that this is going to all of a sudden trip and you're going to get a higher level. Like if you think about how many times you'd have to make the mistake to go from 10 to 36, it's a lot. But if you're already sitting at 35, 35 is also considered normal. If you're sitting at 35, all you need is one triplet mistake added to your gene code, and now all of a sudden you will develop. And that addition stays in the code. It's not enough to kill the cell. The cells will not die. But now this will code for a protein. I've showed you this before. I talked about how protein synthesis occurs. We code for proteins. Now all of a sudden with this 36th protein in there, or 36th repetition in there, the protein that gets made here causes the protein to break. If you exceed 35 repetitions, the protein breaks down. You get these little teeny tiny protein chunks that build up in neurons and will kill you. It's what Huntington's disease is. It's the buildup of this particular protein chain. 100% fatal, there is no cure. And all it is it's a malfunction in a protein chain as it's getting produced through protein synthesis. So all sorts of these things. And what causes this? Again, chemicals, there is no known link between Huntington's and any sort of chemical exposure. It's one of these. It's a mistake that occurs during DNA replication. And it's not a subtraction or a misprint. It's a duplication. It's bonus pieces that you shouldn't have there. There are tons of diseases that are a result of a mutation of a single base in DNA. So when I say base, I mean like the nitrogenous bases, G, C, A, and T. You mess up one of those, now all of a sudden you can develop a disease, genetic disease. These things have a name. These things are called point mutations. An example of this is something we've already talked about, sickle cell. Where your red blood cells don't form the way they're supposed to form. This is the result of one single thymine where there should have been an adenine. One nitrogenous base has been swapped for its partner. Like that's not a difficult mistake to make. It's a mistake you guys made on your quiz last week. That happens in a human being. Congratulations. All of a sudden, now you'll have sickle cell. And that mistake, because that now, the improper DNA is what will then get replicated. And that is what will then get replicated. And it depends on when this happens, but if this happens in a guy who is constantly creating new sperm, now all of a sudden sickle cell can get passed. In a woman, it's less of an issue because your eggs are already done. If it doesn't happen in an egg when the copying is happening, you're fine. You can have sickle cell as a woman and not pass it on. As a guy, that's a lot harder to do. Because guys are constantly going through the process of meiosis and women are not. So sickle cell is a result of a single thymine where there should be an adenine and something called progeria. Is the result of a single thymine where that should have been a cytosine. This is progeria. I don't know if you've ever seen this guy. I don't know if he's still alive. He looks really old. He is a teenager in this picture. It is just a ridiculous aging speed. And it's the result of one base being in the wrong spot. Now, not all mutations are bad. Most are, some aren't. Some mutations can be beneficial. There are still yet others that really have no effect. Like my sunspots all over my arm is what they're called. Old people have them more than young people. It was really interesting, like looking at my son and my daughter. as they were born, their skin was clean. There was not a mark on their skin. I have freckles, I have sunspots. It was really kind of weird. I'm like, oh, I have never seen, up till this point, I had never seen a human being like blank slate. And now they're starting to develop freckles, and they're starting, like, the impact of their short existence is already being felt and expressed visually. My son has a mole on his butt. Who knew? So stuff like that, beneficial or no effect mutations, and some mutations may provide what's called a selective advantage. In changing conditions. This is the basis for what theory? The overarching theory that seems to try to govern all of biology. One of the single hardest things for us to really study in science. What's the big theory of biology? Starts with an E. Someone just say it. Yeah, louder. Who said that? Say it louder. It's the theory of evolution. This is the basis for the theory of evolution. It's the idea that there could be beneficial mutations that occur over time that on their own aren't harmful, and depending on the surrounding circumstances might actually be beneficial. An example of this could be something like skin color. When we just discuss skin color, like I told you I'm from Germany. My family's German. I have a side of my family that's Russia. So northern hemisphere, Russia and Germany are known for their winters and their rain. And so being white in those environments doesn't necessarily increase my risk of skin cancer, for example. But there are other countries like Australia, for example. Australia is known for their sun, their beaches, and their ridiculous rates of skin cancer. You take a bunch of light-skinned, and Australia was colonized by who? The British. They sent all their prisoners to Britain. The Brits are also known for being pasty white people, fond of colonizing things, right? So you get a bunch of pasty white people, and you shove them in Australia. Skin cancer rates in those white people go nuts. But people have been living in Australia forever. There is the First Nations groups in Australia aren't white. They have much more dark skin. And skin cancer rates in those people, almost non-existent. The darker your skin, the better it is at handling the UV radiation from the places in which you live. People who live in the extreme north and extreme south, your Scandinavians, your Finns, your Swedes, your Brits, your Northern Europeans, didn't experience ridiculous rates of skin cancer because they have no sun. The Russians, they have no sun. But that middle band, there's a reason why people, indigenous people and people from like the equator, all have darker skin. India, and that, like, just go around the world. India, Africa, Central America are typified by having darker skin. That is an advantageous mutation. Rates of skin cancer in those people in the areas in which they live are lower. It means you don't have to worry about surviving. If you took everyone from Sweden, okay, cool. You guys are now going to live around the equator. Skin cancer rates go crazy. And now all of a sudden you have a population that isn't designed to survive in a particular area. And all of a sudden, people who in that area are born with darker skin, because could be Like your skin color is a reflection of your genetic code. You mutate it. Maybe you're a Swede that's slightly darker. Now all of a sudden that's a beneficial mutation if you're living on the equator. Where it's totally unnecessary if you leave the Swedish person up in Sweden in the dark. One example in humanity of a trait where it is absolutely beneficial to your survival to have a particular phenotype expressed for something as simple as skin color. This is the basis for the theory of evolution. It goes on to say a selective advantage, so what I call here a selective advantage. A selective advantage is a genetic advantage that improves an organism's chance of survival, usually in a changing environment. Not always a changing environment, but it could be a changing environment. Maybe the environment's the same, but the population has to move. Maybe it's a migratory animal, or that's all people have done through the entire history of humanity is migrate. We started in, if there's still debate whether it was North Africa or like South Central Middle East, Iraq, Iran. We don't all live in Iraq and Iran anymore. We have colonized the globe. And so as that happened, different people groups settled in different areas, and then different traits became expressed. It's complicated. It's fun. Ooh, do I, dare I, don't I? Someone said don't. There's an activity I want to do with you guys, but I don't have time to do it now, and there's a number of your classmates away that I want them to be here for this. Okay, I'm going to stop here. My lesson today is going to stop here. It's just going to be this one page. You can use the rest. There's about 25 minutes left in the block. I want you to use this time to, I think Kaylee was the only one who got up to hand in a monster, which means everyone else handed in their monsters yesterday, which I know didn't happen. Or there's people whose monsters are incomplete. I'm going to give you the rest of the block today, 25 minutes, to finish up anything that you need to hand in to me and to prepare yourselves for this quiz tomorrow. You can use this time on your market set giver. We will move into natural selection next week.